She stood up after weeks in a wheelchair. Gasps filled the room. Her husband's face turned pale, not from shock at her recovery, but from the secret she had just revealed. The heiress had never been paralyzed. It was all a test. And in that moment, it wasn't her husband who proved love. It was the black janitor he despised. This wasn't just betrayal. It was the unmasking of a man who cared only for wealth. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching? Drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. It was a grand mansion glowing under the soft lights of dusk, the kind of place that carried stories of old money and whispered secrets. Amelia, the only daughter of a billionaire family, had grown up in halls lined with portraits of ancestors who valued wealth above all else. To the outside world, her life seemed flawless. Lavish parties, designer gowns, and a husband chosen from the elite circle of powerful men. Yet behind the sparkle, Amelia carried a quiet suspicion that gnawed at her heart. Her husband, Charles, was everything her parents had wanted for her, polished, ambitious, and commanding in every room. But love, that was harder to measure. Amelia often wondered if his affection was truly for her or for the immense fortune tied to her name. Doubts grew heavier each time she noticed his indifference toward her when the cameras stopped flashing or when the spotlight dimmed. One evening, as shadows stretched long across the marble floors, Amelia hatched a plan so daring it made her pulse race. She decided to pretend she had lost the use of her legs, claiming a sudden accident had left her bound to a wheelchair. It was a test, cruel perhaps, but necessary. She needed to know whether Charles would stay beside her when beauty and glamour faded, or abandon her when the illusion of perfection was gone. Unbeknownst to her, the test would not only expose her husband's heart, but also bring into her life someone unexpected, Samuel, the black janitor who quietly worked in the background of her mansion. What started as an experiment in love would unravel into a story of betrayal, racism, and an unexpected truth about who truly cared for her. The next evening, Amelia appeared in her wheelchair. She looked pale, fragile, her voice trembling as she explained her sudden condition. Charles froze, his smile cracking at the edges. He tried to feign concern, but his eyes betrayed impatience. He offered obligatory words of comfort, yet his hands never once touched hers. Days passed, and Amelia carefully observed. Charles became distant, spending late nights away, muttering about business meetings. When guests visited, he kept her hidden upstairs, ashamed of her new state. The whispers from the social circle only sharpened his cruelty. "A man like Charles," one guest murmured at a dinner, "shouldn't be burdened with a crippled wife." Those words, carried through the grand hallways, reached Amelia's ears like a knife. But while her husband's care faded, another presence quietly stepped in. Samuel, the black janitor, often tasked with cleaning her quarters, noticed the loneliness in her eyes. Though invisible to most, he carried himself with dignity despite the disdainful looks from the wealthy elite. He adjusted her wheelchair with patience, offered her water when no one else bothered, and once whispered with gentle honesty, "He doesn't love you. He loves what your name brings him. True love doesn't look like this." That moment struck her. She had created the deception to test Charles, but it was Samuel who saw straight through the facade, not because of her wealth, but because he looked at her as a person. Charles's indifference grew bolder. At one gala, he left her behind entirely, embarrassed by her presence. Samuel found her alone in the dim corridor, tears slipping down her face. Without hesitation, he wheeled her out into the garden, letting her breathe under the stars. For the first time, Amelia felt a strange calm, real kindness that expected nothing in return, but this secret bond would not remain unnoticed. The household soon whispered, why was the billionaire heiress so often in the company of the janitor? And Charles, when he discovered it, would show a cruelty neither of them expected. The breaking point came on a stormy evening. Amelia sat waiting in her wheelchair for Charles to return home, hoping against hope that he would surprise her with affection. Instead, he stormed through the door, eyes ablaze, clutching a letter he had intercepted. A servant had written to Amelia's cousin, mentioning how the heiress was often seen with Samuel, the janitor. Charles's rage exploded. He hurled accusations, his voice venomous with both jealousy and contempt. "You humiliate me, parading with a servant? And not just a servant, a black janitor." His words dripped with the racism he never dared voice in public. Amelia trembled, stunned not by his anger, but by how easily he revealed his true colors. As he threatened to throw Samuel out, Samuel appeared in the doorway, calm but firm. He didn't cower under Charles's insults. Instead, he looked straight at Amelia and said, "You see now, his love was for your wealth, never for you." Charles lunged toward Samuel, but Amelia's voice cut through the thunder outside. "Enough!" Her hands gripped the wheelchair arms, and in one shocking motion, she stood. Gasps echoed as her deception crumbled, but the truth was undeniable. She had never been paralyzed. The test was over. Charles's face twisted in horror and fury. His mask of charm shattered completely, exposing the greedy, prejudiced man he was. Meanwhile, Samuel stood unwavering, the embodiment of honesty and care. In that moment, Amelia realized the greatest betrayal wasn't her husband's disloyalty, but the years she spent doubting her own instincts. Dear audience, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps. The fallout was swift and brutal. Amelia's revelation spread across the city like wildfire. The social circles that once praised Charles now whispered behind his back, appalled by his greed and prejudice. His empire, built on charm and carefully crafted appearances, began to crumble as investors withdrew and allies distanced themselves. For Amelia, the deception had been dangerous, but necessary. It stripped away the illusions and showed her who truly cared. Charles had failed the test spectacularly, but Samuel had passed without ever knowing there was one. His compassion, his quiet strength, and his refusal to judge her worth by wealth or disability had revealed what love should look like. Amelia didn't need to say much. Her decision was clear. Charles was left in the ruins of his own arrogance, while she walked forward, literally and metaphorically, into a life no longer dictated by status or shallow appearances. The story became more than gossip in high society. It became a mirror. People whispered not only about Amelia and Charles, but about how often love and loyalty are measured by convenience instead of truth, and how often prejudice blinds us to the worth of those who stand quietly in the shadows. So, dear audience, ask yourself, in a world obsessed with appearances, who would stand beside you when everything else fades? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos.